Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Spotlight on CS Ops. I'm here with my co host, Matthew Lind. And today we have a wonderful opportunity to interview Matthew Cloherty. So I'm surrounded by two Matts today. It's absolutely phenomenal, or two Matthews, sorry. Matthew Cloherty, or Matt Cloherty, goes by. We used to work together at a previous company called UiPath, and actually previously I got the opportunity to work with Matt twice, UiPath and PTC. And Matt comes from a bit of a different angle. He's not your traditional CS ops strategist or like CSP technician. Matt comes from a very solid data foundation. And everything he does, from what I know of him, everything he does is surrounded by metrics and is driven by KPIs and data models and everything that sort of drives a business. So really fortunate to have you here today, Matt. And I would love to kind of jump in and maybe learn a little bit more about your journey.
Awesome. And thanks for having me here. I'm excited. So on the data side, it's also in the I have a different flavor within the CS realm, is that I really dance between CS ops, sales ops, your broad rev ops, but always sometime on the analytics planning strategy side. So before we get to what I'm doing now, John already mentioned I've had the pleasure of working with him twice. I thought about let's go back to the beginning of my career, about how I got here to start with the data and a little bit of the obsession, but then how we go take some action from that. So turn back the clock, 2015. I got a job as a customer retention analyst at a company, logged me in. So it was essentially what's the retention rate, renewal rate, all of that, build it out. Here's the data model. Well, the data model was there, but being the data steward with the BI team, but not just that metric, but how do we operationalize those metrics and data across every element of sales ops, rev ops, pricing, marketing, what have you? Like, what is our ARR base? Hey, if we did a repricing, what does the space look like? And I got to touch upon everything from sales, finance, pricing, marketing, product, CS, or it was the early days of CS, as 2015 was. So I was there several years. It got merged with GoToMeeting. It's ironic we're on Zoom because 2016, I was the analyst, putting together the deck on the rates for the executives, and top 10 of our top churns went to this thing called Zoom. So it was very much kind of the early side there. And then, so from there, went to another company, more in a sales ops role, but then I ended up at a company, Carbon Black, that actually got bought by VMware. So I even saw the smaller company just IPO get bought by the bigger one. And in that role, I went back to my data focus, where I was a manager for planning and analytics for your renewal sales, customer success, and partner sales. So it really was how are our partners performing? How are the renewals performing? But then over time, how do we blend it with health? How do we understand, like, here's the accounts at risk. Why did we lose? Why did we downsell on those big accounts? But in particular, how do you break it out? Like pairing it with my partner in crime in CS Ops, she went and she built out the new health score. It was all those sub scores to eventually go, okay, here's that executive dashboard, overall health, executive sponsorship health, support health, product health. So we understood how we were losing on our accounts, but what could we go do to mitigate that risk? And then come up with a stronger, sales forecast on our renewals, full planning, and really have that narrative down. And then after that is where I ended up crossing paths with Jean. I had the opportunity to manage a customer success analytics team. It actually was a team of three with a bit of a hybrid of one person was very analytics focused, again, that executive, but I had two people because we were bridging the whole paid CS, as we always have that debate, versus staffing model, and understand. So I had two people help support that. So it was the whole team was doing that, but like, how do we bridge our coverage? Wait, we're one product, we're not multiple. Those kind of big questions. Then UiPath, I was more of a customer data architect, re-architecting Gainsight, understanding the partner, back with partners again, that data architecture. And then finally, my current role is at a company, data miner, pre-IPO, past Series E, very, very strong business. As sales strategy, but I'm all focused on big corporate initiatives like aligning. Okay, we have to get ready for an S1. How do we get our ARR automated for that? But more importantly, mixing that with automating provisioning someday with our product as we launch new products. So it's those more fundamental things, because you don't realize how much, like, our CSMs today are manually provisioning our accounts as they come in. If we could automate all that, we don't just pass an audit once we someday become public. But we're just going to get such productivity for our CSMs and a way better customer experience. That, coming up with an overall go-to-market GTM scorecard of what's new business have to do? What does expansion need to do? What about our retention business? But thinking not just sales metrics, but CS together. So again, getting back to that bridge, but having those teams do it together. I mean, even recently, our head of CS is now heading CS, or the customer experience, and sales. So she's now doing CS experience and sales, bringing them together. So as we're seeing in the industry, the separation of church and state of CS sales is coming back together.
Well, I don't know if we could possibly have gone on a more interesting arc where, like, all through of the partners, the sales, the scorecards, ops, automation, digital, like, just packed it all in there.
Yeah, sorry, I know I talked a lot there. I thought we could just leap from there.
Right? It's just a lecture, which I'm enjoying thoroughly. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back in that just a little bit. So something that you said stuck out to me, which is you had data, you built a scorecard, you understood how the two related. And I feel like in CS ops, there's so many situations, or rev ops, where it's like, I have a pile of data and I have some churn data, and I'm supposed to find where the two talk to each other. I'm supposed to find the magic thing. And is it adoption? Is it support? Is it that whiz bang feature? How did you approach that question such that when you got to the end, you're like, we understand where the correlation lies?
Thank you for that, Matt, or Matthew. I'll be Matt. You could be Matthew today.
All
so
right, that's the deal.
The big thing there was it took a lot of work from we've updated our loss reasons. Wait, what about if there's downsell, or we call that erosion? It's funny. I actually kind of like erosion better, because a downsell sale, that's positive. We did some winning. Like, no, it was a downwind versus erosion. Like, no, we had this, like, they reduced, like, they eroded their contract. Trying to get that up in the ecosystem, that terminology.
Yes.
Anyhow,
yeah.
So, okay, we have to update those opportunities. But all the while, we had all these detailed, like, 20 different reasons. Let's up level them. Like, and then to like 5. Pricing and packaging, stakeholder management, product support. And even that, and then I forget and then you're just miscellaneous, competition, or like going out of business, what have you. But we had those. And then we said to ourselves, okay, what can CS or sales control? Product, we talked to product, we have product reviews. We actually got reviews with product. Here is the top accounts by that product line. Here's what's at risk by those product line, and got like your GTM kind of metrics, but by a product cut to our PMs, and got those conversations going. That was something that Jean and I really spearheaded at PTC. Even then, it was like these product reviews, because product managers a lot of time, and this is just how, we used to say, okay, marketing and sales are shaking the hand. It's like CS and product will shake the hand. Well, the way you shake the hand is you're looking at the same business metrics. So we did that, as well as, and then within our scorecard, we said, how do we correlate this? Like stakeholder engagement. Okay, that's something that was a clear score in our scorecard, and we had it as a separate measure that we mapped all of our open ARR to. Same thing on product and support. We looked at, well, what's our MTTR, what's our general escalation for different levels? Now let's map that into our scorecard as that team organizes, so it's all the common language. Because just the product of Carbon Black was fairly technical, cybersecurity, and then it was a very clear, hey, they have their method. Well, this is a way for the head of CS to go talk to the head of a product line. Like, I know you're getting that support report over here, but here's a clear way to put it up with our renewal pipeline. Or you could say, hey, we have stakeholders aligned. They're gaining value. We know there's these support tickets or bugs in the product, but we're good. Or everything is good. No. They just have a new CISO who's going to rip everything out. So it was taking the time to come up with a process to collect the data, getting it very detailed, and you had all that and went, how do I make this into that, easy to read, story-based slide? And then that kind of thing. Because I think in every area of rev ops, sales ops, marketing ops, CS ops, we all like to make dashboards that are all live. I don't believe in always doing that. I think it's about the story, and it's about how do you empower your teams to do that. Like QBRs are a special time. Not when I don't mean QBRs with customers, those are, but I mean internally, because that's how ops can help go to customer leaders, organize what's going on with their teams and the narrative, what's going on in customers, to say, here's what's working, here's what's not. Let's come up with a plan to go change that.
Yeah. I love this storytelling analogy. I think that's true. We sometimes over rotate on the live dashboard or the whiz bang. We share our screen in a Zoom call. Sorry for the Zoom trauma, but we share our screen as it's a spreadsheet that's too wide to even fit on the screen. It's like, actually, what we need now is a story. I need an actionable insight that we can work on. So I really applaud that approach.
Yeah, and thank you. And the other thing too is, and then teams need a dashboard. Hey, by the way, this metric and this summary that we just did, here's the dashboard that you can go get that for your teams and coaching and what have you. It's not, we need to move away. I think I'm experiencing teams moving away from this, where there used to be the one dashboard to rule them all approach. And it's like, oh, I need all my renewals and all my health and all my CTAs. Like, think about Gainsight dashboarding or Salesforce dashboarding. It's like you can't get everything there magically perfectly, and that's okay. So
Like that. I'm just loving this, because I think some of the things you're touching on, Matt, is really about like slightly breaking down silos as well, right? Like, you're talking about really, how do we analyze customer data? How do we make sense of it? And how do we get information out of it? It's not CS data. It's not sales data. It's not marketing data. It's truly just this blob of thing that's customer data. And to me, it aligns with what I think a lot as well. Is because at the end of the day, like, the customer journey is cross-functional. Customers don't care about silos. They don't care if they're talking to the marketer or the salesperson or the CSM. They just know that they're talking to you, the company, and they're expecting some value out of your product. And so when companies are starting to think more and more about eliminating some of those functional boundaries, and instead of thinking about hey, let's build data just for the CS team, or let's build data just for the sales team, and are starting to think a little bit broader than that, and focusing on how do we build this insight or this muscle for the entire company so that they better understand customers, so that it impacts retention, expansion, and maybe hopefully it impacts new business and new acquisitions and how they go to market on new business. Is that kind of what you've seen?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm seeing. And I think part of that is, too often, as we've kind of seen, if we think about tech over the last 3 to 5 years, everyone went and built up all these siloed empires. Now we're bringing them back down or bringing them back together. But we built a lot of different tools and metrics. It's just like, well, I have my metrics, so listen to my team. It's like, it's the same kind of thing. Like, one thing a data miner we're working on is the way we do risk mitigation. It was, Well, it was in gain sight and go email, but then the AM would go tag it, tag the renewal op on this. I'm like, we just need one way to tag this thoroughly. And it's not just for our renewals forecast, but I want to know, like, we had a mitigation, take a snapshot. It's already in our pipeline snapshots. We didn't churn it. What did we do? That's a narrative and that's a story because there's a lot of sales leaders, CS leaders will, at least in my experience, be able to talk about those stories easily when they're asked, or like they're all anecdotes, but you need a way to help summarize the anecdotes because it gets back to helping them tell that story.
Mhm. That makes sense. I want to go back a little bit before your career. Like, how did you? So you've explored quite a bit about kind of your craft and what you do as a human, your day to day. How did you jump into this? Like, you started out with the analyst role in LogMeIn, but like, was that did you study to become an analyst? Did you study to
So
doing data, or how did
yeah,
that work?
so it's funny. I went to a liberal arts school. I was a like government or political science major. I had like math and business econ minors, but I always, and it's actually, I actually think I read a lot, like we're joking about before we hit record, books. I read a lot of politics or economics books for fun. I could talk for another hour on all that kind of stuff, but I like to see like how like political economy like was where I spend a lot of time in my free fun reading. It's like how does this institution impact this one? So I like to see those correlations, and that's what we see a lot. A lot of my job is I'm not by any means a data scientist. I've been tagged a data guy, but I'm like where I am in my career now is how am I a, a RevOps strategist. And data is just that main tool of how we get people systems and teams talking to each other in aggregate. Uh, so I will admit I did the brief stint in finance. I'm like, I don't like this. My first job was investment risk reporting at an insurance company. So at college.
That sounds fancy. It sounds very
Oh, it was
prestigious.
not. It was not.
No, okay,
It
okay.
was not, but hey, I learned enough Excel that it was able to get me that first job at LogMeIn.
What's your recommendation to folks who are sitting? Well, I wrote it down in one of those siloed empires. They're all staring out from their marble towers at each other, thinking, "Don't you come for my territory" or something. But how do you break that down? How do you get, let's call it adoption? How do you get adoption or buy-in into, nah, maybe we shouldn't use all of these silos any longer?
I like that. How do we get adoption? You just turned, adoption on its head. Um, I think first, and this is something piece of advice. When I managed a team, I gave it to my team, and I tell people now, think of your job or whatever you work on as like 2 degrees of separation. Kind of like, hey, you might be in sales ops and hey, yeah, we're doing deal qualification. Oh, I have to do a churn report too. Like I got pulled into that. Huh, a lot of first year renewals seem to churn. I wonder why. Maybe I could go talk to my buddies over in CS ops. They're like, they had crappy health scores. Or oh, we never got them onboarded. Take even a health score out. What do you mean? And then you look at the churn reasons, these people sold, this product and they said it could do all these things in their taxes for them. So that's not the right use case. And I give that example because it's that curiosity and it's asking the next question, not just your job itself. Like it's asking the why. And the thing about the why, when we're all just looking at screens or what have you, from data you pull from Salesforce or wherever, there's a story behind it. Go talk to someone else who might. Like back in my first job at LogMeIn, that's what I would do for everything. Is I made a point to meet and talk with as many people as possible in other departments because that's a way. And even then, like the one person I worked with for the data set that I was the data steward on, the BI engineer, we got to a point we just had a standing weekly coffee And it was like, hey, I found something. Maybe we can make that enhancement. Nope, it's good. How's your day going? How's the week? Wednesday, 2:30, we would just grab a coffee. And that kind of approach is that. So building relationships with people first, while also from a point of curiosity. Because then
That
eventually
is,
you're going to go, there's no reason to have this silo. What are we doing?
yeah. What great advice. First of all, asking why, and I've heard the adage of like just keep asking why. Sometimes you have to ask why 5 times to get to kind of do the 3-year-old approach. Like just keep
Mm-hmm.
asking why. I'm also love the very practical like build a relationship. If you'll permit me one very small anecdote when I was lead on the CSP, the customer success platform at a particular company that integrated heavily with Salesforce. And so my administrator and I would get together once a week on Friday, but instead of sitting in a conference room or at our desks,
Mm-hmm.
we would walk out of the building and go sit in soft, comfy chairs at Starbucks over a coffee. And we
Yep.
still got stuff done, and but we caught up with each other, and to this day, and that was many years ago, that Stephanie and I worked together, but she is one of my best friends, and she participated in my wedding when it happened, and it's like that's where the magic happens.
Exactly. And it's almost like the why. I'm like, no, no, why? Why? Who? Who might be able to help answer this question to break down that silo? So you can get 2 to 3 whys, but by then, let's use some other W's.
Use some other W's. All right, well, we'll write that one down for sure.
I like your comment though as well about like, it's not just a matter of like focusing on the data and digging deeper or maybe asking more whys, but also making sure that you build relationship and rapport with people. So much about what we do is like driving change, driving like you know visibility into what might be wrong or what might be doing that's not working out for ourselves. And so like there's a lot of introspection into the business. People have to kind of let go of their guards a little bit and not
Mm-hmm.
focus on I'm 100% right, this is the right thing to do, because companies need to change and adapt and evolve, and it's only through that introspection and looking at data and figuring out like how do we improve that's going to help a company. But you can't do that, or it's very difficult to do that without having a bit of a relationship, because I think, speaking from personal experience, like breaking that barrier and building that relationship allows people to kind of drop their guards. It allows people to get like more honest or more open with themselves, with their teams, especially when you're talking to chiefs and people with senior VP titles. They often can be very like guarded, and they don't want to show that they were doing something, they were leading something that may not be as effective as they thought it could be. So great statement. Is that, I think that's like part of your, maybe your skill set. Maybe that's what the liberal arts program taught.
No, well, and John, you're actually getting to something because we just gave examples of like when you do it with other ops people, but how do you manage up when you're talking to SVP, VPs, SVPs, chiefs, what have you? And that's the other element, because a lot of time it'll be present the data, but like in a summarized way, get a reaction, and they'll be like, "What am I looking at?" Explain it a little, but you have to listen a lot, because a lot of times what you'll want to do is just listen, see how they will mention things to then help repivot that view in a way from the way that they talk. Like something is we happen to have like in the data, most of our expansions happen at renewal. And then there's like, well, do you put that in NRR? But wait, there's no base. I'm like, I'm just gonna break that in period, off cycle. And then that's emotion. And then that was something that I got, talking more. So like that's something, it's a lot of active listening when it's working with them, building those relationships. And I think that with the why who approach is how any area of ops people can move out of the admin analyst realm into the advisor, because I think is where all of us want to get to, and that's how we need to repivot our thinking to try to get there. At least in my opinion. Challenge me, come at me. Matthew, I'm sorry when you were mentioning, oh, you administered the platform. I mean, we've all been admins or analysts here.
Yeah, I feel like we need to move from A to administrator to analyst to advisor.
To advisor.
We put a couple more A's on that, and
yeah, I mean, I like
sell a book about it.
Admiral, like, oh, I'm going to be the Admiral of RevOps.
Yeah, I mean, we need the levels.
But
when we play our game of siloed empires, which, by the way,
yes,
I think is gonna be a new board game.
That's how, because you
would
never
have
want
layers, levels, ranks. Yeah.
But no, I think that is the advice I'd give to anyone to break that, to make that jump, is don't be in a silo. And it's also with business partners, is how you move from policing to partnering.
Oh, a different letter.
Different letter. Different letter.
Like it.
Very good. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Matt, for joining us on the show here. Tons of insights and super informative about how you kind of grew your career and how you've been crushing it in the CS data and the CS, or the customer strategy side of things as well. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Awesome. It's great to be here.
Pleasure.